Entrepreneurship and business ownership is the biggest personal development journey that you'll ever go on. And I don't think people quite understand how much of their personal stuff they're bringing into their business.
Are we going to go so far as saying you're not going to be successful unless you're willing to do some inner work?
I would 100% say that.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Geronimo Unfiltered podcast. I'm Dozy, your host, and today I've got a special guest. It's Ash. Ash Mazing. Ash is our mindset coach in the Geronimo Academy. Hello, Ash.
Hi. I love this Ash Mazing thing, by the way. The best. I've told everybody in my life that's now my name. Yeah.
Thanks for being here. I wanted you to come in and we're just going to have a little off-the-record, unfiltered chat on these fluffy chairs. If you guys are watching us on YouTube, we're in our Gold Coast studio and we've got some fluffy chairs. I don't know if that's our aesthetic, but we're going with it. We are going with it.
Yeah.
Now, fucking real talk, okay? Mm-hmm. Because we have chats off camera about what's really going on sometimes with our owners. We love our owners. Yep. But also just the people in the industry. You work with them when they're in Geronimo and then you help them through different things along the way and break through different sticking points that they have from making their sale a day within the first kind of 4 weeks right up to making $1 million studio level.
Yeah, yeah.
But every time along the way you see a pattern emerge as owners, right? And it probably takes all of us because we're all humans. What are the biggest things that you see common patterns amongst owners in the network and just us as humans, as people? What gets us stuck along the way?
I think to give it good context, entrepreneurship and business ownership is the biggest personal development journey that you will ever go on. And I don't think people quite understand how much of their personal stuff they're bringing into their business. So we're all human beings and we all have a set of programs, limiting beliefs, values, fears, all of these things that are embedded deep in our subconscious mind, which is responsible for 95% of how we think, feel, behave, and what we create. I think what we see a lot and what happens in life in general is people have a conscious desire. They want to make money, they want to achieve a goal, they want to grow their business, but they're competing against a set of programs that have been so deeply embedded into their subconscious mind and are in conflict with what they want. Right. And that's what we call self-sabotage. I often see this very early on in the piece.
How do you see it play out? Because I want our owners, they're going to be in the car listening to this, they're going to be throwing out some weights or they're going to be in their own world. They might not know, they might not realise it's self-sabotage. So what are some of the things that you see?
Yeah. So to explain what self-sabotage actually is, it's when we have a conscious desire, so that's our goal. Yeah. That's making money, that's growing the business, whatever it is. And then we have a subconscious program or fear that is incongruent with that goal. So it's like this internal conflict. And because 95% of everything we create in our life comes from our subconscious programming, like our inner dialogue, our thoughts, our beliefs, our values, this conflict can be incredibly strong. So you can really consciously want something so badly. You want to feed your family. You want to create financial stability. You want to serve this community. You really want it, but then you procrastinate or you don't invest or overcomplicate things. You get overwhelmed. You create drama. You can do all these.
Create drama.
Oh, yeah. That's a big one. Drama is an avoidance strategy, right? Because if you're concentrating on putting out this and what's going on over here, you don't actually have to do the things that move the needle forward. So self-sabotage shows up in these really strange ways that we don't even know it's self-sabotage. We just think that's the problem, but we've actually created that problem. So we don't have to do the thing we're actually afraid of doing because doing that is in conflict with something else that's going on in the subconscious. I'll give you some examples.
Please.
So if you want to be successful, you want to build a business, all that stuff, blah, 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 but you have a subconscious program from your childhood that money is evil because you came from a family where your hardworking dad who was blue collar, who thought that wealthy people were the worst and anyone who had money was greedy and selfish. So this is an unconscious program around money and success that you are carrying. Any single time you start to break through a new income goal and you start to become one of those people, it threatens this belief and paradigm that you have been imprinted with for a very long time. And if you looked up to your dad, then you don't want to potentially have a disconnection from that person. Wow. So it threatens a core belief around money that may have been imprinted from childhood. So it doesn't mean to say that everyone needs to go to therapy and unpack all that stuff, but to have a certain level of awareness around what your stories are around money, success, achievement, and being liked and accepted, all these kind of different aspects, understanding what your initial core programs are around those things will help you acknowledge when you're hitting a self-sabotage kind of point.
Are we going to go as far as saying, and this is unfiltered, like we don't mind being a little bit controversial here, okay? Are we going to go so far as saying you're not going to be successful unless you're willing to do some inner work?
I would 100% say that unless you were already programmed with a bunch of programs that support success. So a lot of people who find it really natural to just take action and take responsibility and take risk and do the stuff, they may have been raised in an environment that supported that. So there are natural born leaders, natural born doers who just seem to excel. Same with like athletes. There's athletes who are just good and they barely have to do anything. Right. Whereas there's athletes that are good, but they've worked and looked at their gaps and their weaknesses and worked on those. So it's the same, I believe, with business and success is some people were just lucky to be born into an environment that supported that and they have the natural capabilities. So they're the ones that get frustrated when other people just can't seem to get their shit together. I'm looking at somebody over here. But then there are other people who, again, weren't raised in environments or just have subconscious programming that doesn't necessarily support their conscious mind's goals or is in conflict.
This is so fascinating. Starting out in business, there are certain motivations. In this industry, like in the health and fitness industry, a lot of it is to help people.
Yep.
And also, if you just wanted to help people and not care about money, there's probably a charity angle to it. But if you wanted to find the perfect intersection of helping people and, you know, achieving financial freedom for your family and just having some nice things and taking your kids to Disneyland and just like some stuff, you'd think along the way there are things that you didn't realise you had to know. Mm-hmm. It's a quest. If you imagine a movie or a video game, there's like the character sets out.
The hero's journey.
Tell me more.
Oh, you've never heard of the hero's journey?
I have, but for the listeners.
Oh, okay. Hero's journey is, I love anything that's got to do with archetype and metaphor because that's big in the subconscious mind. Archetype and metaphor is the language of the subconscious. So the hero's journey is based off a book by Joseph Campbell called The Hero Has 1,000 Faces. And it's basically like the template for human transformation. And it's like formulaic. And some of the biggest and most famous blockbuster movies out there are based off the hero's journey. Always starts with a stage of unconscious incompetence, which is I don't know what I don't know. I'm just like in my patterns, in my world, living as I always have. Don't know anywhere to, don't know any better. And then there becomes a point of awakening of, okay, wait, there is this other world out there for me. And that's when we move to a state of conscious incompetence, which is I now know what I don't know, but I don't yet know what to do. As in the context of what we do, people are coming to us at a stage usually of conscious incompetence. I've actually realised I don't know what the F I'm doing. A lot of people will stay in unconscious incompetence forever and just blame everything outside of them and not really have the awakening of realising that they are actually in control. It can be someone else seeing evidence of someone else. It can be a model of excellence. It can be like a big shake up or like they hit a rock bottom point.
Holy fuck moment.
Yeah, like you really hope that's not it, that people have to really fail until they hit rock bottom to actually wake the hell up. But unfortunately, that's really what happens. Right. People stay asleep until it gets really bad. And they just avoid because the pain of change is still greater than the pain of staying the same. And until that switch happens, they will remain.
Even if they complain, it's still a safe space.
Yeah.
Safe place.
Well, that's certain.
Right. Okay.
And some people would prefer to stay in a certain misery than an uncertain, potentially bright future because the unconscious mind's greatest goal is to create certainty. So we're always fighting up against our unconscious mind's desire to keep everything the same, even if it fucking sucks, because your unconscious mind believes that if you're alive and breathing, everything is great. That's all it cares about. It doesn't care that you want to go to Bali with your family twice a year. It doesn't give a shit. It actually just wants everything to remain the same.
So this is the journey from conscious incompetence to
conscious competence, which is I'm becoming competent, I'm learning, but I have to concentrate. It's not yet embodied, it's not yet automatic. So these skills, let's use sales for an example. So someone might join our academy because they suck at sales and they realize that now. They're like, wow, I now realize I suck at sales. So then they join and they start to learn how to sell really well. And initially it's not going to be very natural. They're going to have to concentrate. It's not going to flow and they're going to feel awkward or weird. But then after a period of time, they start to become unconsciously competent, which means more automatic, more embodied, more natural.
Like driving a car?
Yeah, like driving a car. Yeah, exactly.
Or is that another one on top of that?
Well, yeah, I believe so. Yeah, mastery is just, I think, a really high level of competence, but something can be just automatic and unconscious and just more embodied and just quite natural. It's just more like you don't have to concentrate on it. It's like you just do it. I can ride a bike. I wouldn't say I'm masterful at riding a bike, but I have an unconscious competence about riding a bike. I can just do it.
That's interesting. When we see some of our clients or studios just out there, and the studios, when I say studio owners, there's nothing wrong with studio owners. It's just as a subset of people. But when we go through periods of struggle, or when we go through periods of, oh, fuck, there's another holy fuck moment, or I don't know how to do this. I'm so bloody stupid at this. I don't know how to do this. Would you suggest like then reframing that as, fuck, maybe I'm on the hero's journey? I
do this all the time. I actually, when I'm taking a private client on a journey, I'll almost give them this template and say, you're going to hit a point, because part of the hero's journey is you get all these resources, you meet allies, and you're going on this journey. You're actually coming up against battles, and you're going to have to use those resources. And these are the inner resources of being able to have resilience, or being able to reframe your thoughts, or whatever kind of tool or system that they need to implement. But it's actually a really important part of the process to have those resistant points, because it's through overcoming them that you become stronger and stronger. So you think, I love using the Matrix as an example. When Neo, he's having that battle, and what's that guy's name? I always forget his name.
Morpheus?
No, Morpheus is his mentor. Morpheus is the mentor.
Yeah.
You know the guy I'm talking about? Hugo Weaving.
Yeah. Yes.
That guy.
Yes. So what's the character's name? Can you quickly look it up? Just for my
very important. Yeah. Very important part.
Agent Smith.
Yeah. I didn't even.
Yeah. And then there's Trinity. Anyway.
He's meeting his allies, his mentor, he's gaining his skills. Remember, he comes up against these battles all the time, and every time he gets stronger and stronger.
Yeah, and yes, and then he loads things in. Like so.
Yeah. The hero's journey is an identity shift.
Oh.
So every transformation is a hero's journey, and every hero's journey is an identity shift.
Let me just pick the mic up off the floor.
Yeah. Wow. So the battle and the resistance, and in context of the people that we work with, that would be, I don't want to submit my numbers, or they're avoiding this, or I'm not going to show up to that call, or creating some kind of reason why they can't implement. That is actually their Agent Smith. That's their internal self. So the Agent Smith and the demons or the dragons are always metaphor for old self, for limiting beliefs, fears. So along the journey, it's about constantly coming up against those friction points of the unconscious mind. And every time you overcome it, and you take a step forward, you start to get stronger, because you're proving yourself that old story, that old narrative is not actually correct. Wow. Or you're changing, you're rewiring. And then there's always like the big battle, the big showdown at the end, which is where you're really challenged to slip back into old patterns. So this might be someone who ghosts in the academy, doing really well, and then out of nowhere, they're like, where have you gone?
They're almost at $1 million.
Yeah. It's because they haven't crossed the threshold to new world. They haven't really embodied the new identity. They meet their old self, and they haven't yet completed the journey. So they go back, and they might have to start again. They may never start again, but it's about pushing through that next threshold. And if they haven't really been supported, I think, with the right internal resources to embody the new identity, the new level of success, then they won't be able to win that battle.
And you use this all the time, right?
All the time. It was really interesting, because how I got into this work was I was a personal trainer for so many years, and I was brilliant at it. I was brilliant at getting someone a result, but not enabling them to keep it.
Oh.
And it wasn't necessarily through the strategies, or probably because a lot of the time I was getting people to diet when they really didn't need to diet. But I'll give you an example of a girl that I work with, and I always use this example. Jess was like an amazing, bubbly young woman in her 20s. She was overweight. She'd always been overweight her whole life. So her identity was funny fat girl. Wow. Everybody used that, and that's her language. That's how she was in the world. And that was her protective layer of, this is the value that I add. And if I call myself that, then I get to embody that. And that's where her sense of power came from, is that was her identity in her friendship group, in her world. When she started losing weight, because I didn't have the skills and the tools to help her embody a new identity, like, she lost 19 kilos. 20 was the goal. She ghosted, disappeared.
At 19?
At 19. She just stopped coming in. And I was like calling her, I'm like, what is going on? And what had happened was, because she was going through this big physical transformation, she was also dealing with all these other challenges that come with that. So she's getting more attention from men. Her friends were starting to be like a bit jealous of her. So she was facing all these other challenges that come with a new identity, an elevated identity of self. And because she didn't have the inner resources to embody that and really take that on, just before she crossed the finish line, she met her old self and realized that she didn't have what it takes to hold on to that. So she sabotaged and went backwards. I saw her 3 months later. She gained it all back. Yeah. And I didn't know at the time what had happened. I was just like, I was so confused, but the more I learned about it, the more I understood that was going on. And I think that's what happens with people and upper limits that they place in terms of income, the level of success they can hold, and the type of person they believe unconsciously or consciously they need to be in order to be able to hold that. If they don't actually align with that identity yet, they won't be able to hold everything that comes with that. The responsibility, the success, the pressure, the everything. So that often happens. And if there is an unconscious story around money and success that they haven't dealt with, then they will sabotage and go back.
Fuck.
Yeah.
How does someone shift that?
That's a really big question. Work with somebody who knows what they're doing around it, number one. But I think recognizing if there is somewhere in your life, your business, whatever, where you're stuck, you've got to ask yourself a question. Is it, I don't have the tools for this to navigate to get to past it? I don't have the skills, or it's a mindset thing. It's either one of those three things.
Tool set,
skill set, mindset. Yeah. So if you say, okay, I've got all the tools available to me to do it. I've got the skills to use the tools. And if it's not those two things, then it's definitely your mindset. And then there's there's a few frameworks to work around with this. But what I like to do is based off this belief loop frame. So essentially, at the root of any self-sabotage behavior or block, there's a belief. There's a core belief.
Mm-hmm.
And when we have a core belief, we will always create circumstances to reaffirm that because we love being right. And also, if we believe something is true, then there's a lot of safety in knowing that outcome. So if I believe I'm a failure, then I will unconsciously create failure to align with that belief because failure is familiar to me.
So you're saying people will create failure
through
just to prove to themselves that they're right about thinking that they're a failure.
Yeah, because that's familiar to them. That makes part of their core self-concept.
Right.
And we can only ever behave in alignment with who we believe that we are. So if I unconsciously believe that I'm a failure because in primary school something happened or my brother was the smart one and I wasn't, whatever it is. Again, we're always bringing this stuff to our present day. So if there's a core belief sitting there, no matter what you do, how many tools or skills that you develop, if you think you're a failure, you'll find a way to be a failure.
You know, work the opposite. If you think you're a winner, you'll just fucking win.
Exactly.
Because that happens.
100%. So there's these things called intermediate beliefs and then there's core beliefs. So an intermediate belief would be you can't grow your gym in winter. Everybody does this. That's an intermediate belief. It's a belief about something outside.
Or like the industry's broken.
It's oversaturated.
It's oversaturated. Too many competitors. I got a message last night from someone that is at 73 active members, wants to get to 150 and is at the point where she has tried for so long. I don't even think people make money in this industry.
Yeah. Cool.
And I said to her, I thought to myself, 150? People can generally turn up to us at 150.
Yeah. So that's an intermediate belief. It's about something not about her. The core belief would be something about her. Because it's not true. We know that.
It's not true.
But it's the person who will either make that true or not true. Right. And it's what she believes, not about the industry, about her capacity to be successful. Whereas somebody else who has a capacity or core belief that they can do it, they'll be like, okay, cool, this is a challenge. I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to problem solve as opposed to rolling over and being like, it's not me.
So if someone listening to this has pulled the car over and just went, oh my God, I'm self-sabotaging. I didn't even realise. Not their fault. It's a program, right? How does someone recognise when they're self-sabotaging and what should they do instead?
Yeah. So back to the belief loop. When we have a belief will create a thought. Our thought will create an emotional state and we behave from our state. So we always act off the back of a state. And then our actions will create results, and that result will reaffirm the belief.
Oh, so it's
a loop, self-perpetuating loop. So if I believe this is going to make me think this way and feel this way and act this way, and if I act this way, that's going to create this result, which is then going to reaffirm the very thing that I believe over and over. And that's why people feel so justified in their beliefs about the industry. Because if I believe the industry is oversaturated, then that's going to make me go, well, why would I bother? Like it's too hard.
It gives them a pass.
Yeah, and therefore I'm going to be in a state of like apathetic, not going to try too hard, I'm not going to invest because I don't think that I can be successful. Why would I get help? Why would I put money into something? So those are my behaviors and therefore I don't upskill, I don't close my gaps. And the result I get is I'm not successful. Of course I'm not because it's the industry. And so that can go on and on. The thing that you do in order to break through that is to go the other way around.
Ooh.
Reverse engineer it. Yeah. And I would actually urge people to not go look at their intermediate beliefs because that's great. You can reframe them pretty quickly by going, it's not true that the industry is saturated because this guy is doing well. Yeah. That's a pretty good one. You can just look for alternate evidence. Yeah. But if it's core, it's a little bit deeper because you will still
That's how I was brought up.
Yeah.
That sort of stuff. So you said go the other way around. What do you mean?
So you look at where in your life or business you're not moving forward, you're stuck.
Okay.
So what's the result? And then you go, what action did I take to get that result, or inaction?
Oh.
So what got that? And then what state was I in when I did that thing or didn't do that thing? So what was like underlying emotional undercurrent? And then go, what thoughts triggered that state? So if I'm frustrated and overwhelmed, what must I have thought to create some frustration and overwhelm? Everything I do doesn't work. I've tried this and that. I've wasted all this money, whatever. And you start to unpack the thoughts. And then the last question is, if I'm having these thoughts, what must I believe?
Right. So you're almost rewinding the movie and just going, okay, when did you...
You're just tracing it back.
You're tracing it back. You're following the breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
Back.
Or, yeah, so that's the way that I like to do it, because it actually helps you map out the sequence. And when you can do this, because all this is happening at lightning speed, it's all subconscious. And the subconscious mind works so fucking fast, you don't even know what's happening. But the only way that we can work with things is when we can make the subconscious conscious. And we do that through actually like mapping it out, writing it down. And that brings it into our conscious reality, and then we can work with it.
So is it true that if we take it from that subconscious to the conscious reality, it can't beat us because it's not in that world? We bring it into our world.
We're shining a light on it. Yeah.
Right, and it doesn't like light.
No, the unconscious doesn't like to be looked at very much, but something happens, and this is what I urge people to do, is awareness without action is like mental masturbation. So you can create all this awareness around you.
Actually, I remember when you said this in front of all the clients.
Oh, did I?
Yeah. I was like, now I'm fucking unfiltered. But,
there we go. Yeah. I think that was probably one of the first presentations I ever did too. I don't know. That
was awesome. They loved it.
I feel like you just get what I'm saying.
No, but like real talk, it is true. Like we do get a lot of people that just turn up to these big Zoom calls that we do.
Yeah.
Masterminding stuff.
Yeah.
And like they're into it.
Nothing happens.
Nothing fucking happens. Yeah. So why is that?
Because we get this little hit of, I reckon it's like dopamine or something from being like, oh yeah, I'm aware.
I've done something about it.
Yeah, awareness is enough. But I think this creates even more internal conflict, because knowing you can be doing better but you're not, that creates a lot of anxiety, which then creates more self-sabotage, because then that reaffirms the story again. I can't do it. So if you're going to go down the path of creating radical self-awareness, which I highly recommend if you're a leader, because your shit becomes everyone else's shit if you don't, but that's not their fault. Don't just go halfway. Get the tools. Sit down and do the actual work to learn to reprogram your subconscious. Right. Because if you're just creating a whole heap of awareness and you're not actually doing anything with it, that'll eat away at you, because now you really feel like a piece of shit. You can't be unconsciously incompetent anymore, pretending you don't know.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, right.
It's like you stay in the stage of conscious incompetence and you're like, I know that I'm fucking it up.
You can't go back. Like you can't go
back unless we had that Men in Black thing, which I have prayed for many times.
What a great movie.
I know, right?
Yeah.
You can't go back. So then you get locked in unconscious incompetence, which is a stage of, I know that...
You get stuck there.
Yeah, and that's where people get really, I guess, really stressed out and overwhelmed. But that's where a lot of people will stay, because they're actually afraid of taking the next step. So often I meet with people when they're inquiring about coming into the academy, and they will know that they need our help.
Wow.
And they will know that if they don't do anything, they're going to stay on the same trajectory. But there is still this huge fear of doing it.
Like at some fucking point, and I want you to call me out here, but at some fucking point, and listeners, I've got to be hard, okay? Sometimes I feel like saying, we've all got a fucking story, man. It's not about you anymore. Yes. It's about everyone else that's fucking counting on you to fucking figure this out. And we've, short of doing it for you, which we can't do, which is not actually helping, you've just got to fucking find a way and just make it happen. Every time someone did something for the very first time, they never did it before. Yeah, I just want to fucking shake them sometimes. And I'm a big unit, so I can come across pretty heavy. Sometimes people have emailed in to say that I might have offended someone or I might have been a little bit aggressive. And that's only because I'm intense and passionate about helping people and saving people's lives.
Yeah.
As it's done for me and yourself and Sophie and so many others. And it's like the people behind those transformations are actually these owners. If they just need to fucking shake it into gear, then they can actually make the impact that I believe that they can make in this world. But that's not good enough on my part, because I'm speaking to them at a logical level, but which is why you're so valuable in our communities, because there's actually, we need to go back in there and reprogram some of them.
And I think a good question to ask, we only ever hold on to anything if it's serving us in some way. So even if we have a crappy belief, it's there for a reason. And so a good question for people to ask if they find that they're stuck at that friction point where they just can't seem to take the next step and they can't seem to get their shit together, or they like sign up for something and then just don't go through with it, or whatever it is is a question around secondary gain is the unconscious reason why you benefit from staying exactly where you are.
Unconscious reason.
Yeah. So it's almost always unconscious until you make it conscious. And because staying where you are is meeting some needs, usually around protection from negative emotion and usually around protection from negative emotion like failure and rejection.
And if I stay here, I don't need to face Agent Smith.
Yeah.
And if I have to face Agent Smith, it might bring up some shit that I don't want to talk about.
It might reaffirm the belief that I'm a failure, something like that. Or it's like people just get attention from being a victim, or they have an identity around everything being a grind. You know, those hard workers who just like, that's their identity. And if I grow and make this easy,
then I can't be a hard worker.
Can't be that hard worker. And that's like where I build a self-concept.
You know, where we see that is when people that are on the verge of fucking 300 and that $1 million studio, but they just keep saying, but I'm just a trainer. And you just go, no, you're not. You're a successful business person, dude.
Yeah. There's a belief around what that means and what they stand to lose.
And I was speaking to one the other day and they were saying they were so worried that if they actually got to the level that they really wanted, they said that they wanted, what would their members think about them not like caring about them enough or still being stuck in that I know every single person and everything like that. So, all right, I'm gonna ask you some questions. Okay. Where do you see people fall down in business and what should they do instead? So I remember at the start you tell people about this drama cycle situation. So what should they do instead of the drama cycle? Like how do they know they're in a drama cycle and what should they do instead?
we haven't spoken about that.
Let's do it.
Okay. So drama cycle, I know that you love this model, and I do too, because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. And it's a model that was created by a guy called Steve Kaplan, and it basically talks about drama cycle, drama triangle, and there are three kind of different roles. There's a victim, there's a persecutor, and there's a rescuer. Yeah. And we all have a core role that we play generally based on our personalities. Like some people are just fall into a role of victim very easily. Some people who are people pleasers will be rescuers. They're always wanting to help. And then other people who are persecutors are more confident, a bit more judgmental, a bit more overpowering. But we can all play all these different roles. But we have a general baseline. And what we see a lot of time is the victim role being embodied a little bit too much and creating a persecutor role out of it. So someone can be an actual persecutor and you can be persecuted by someone. But a lot of the time, victims create a role of persecutor. And it's when you put all blame, responsibility outside of yourself and you play helpless, hopeless, can't do anything.
What's an example that we see all the fucking time?
Yeah. Oh, let's go HQ. Yeah. So we'll meet with somebody and there's HQ says this, can't do that. My hands are tied. Nothing works, blah, blah, blah. And that's the story. And like, there's definitely some truth in that for sure. We know that HQs can make it challenging. And then in doing that, the victim will seek a rescuer, someone that can validate them. Someone that goes, yeah, it's not your fault. All the roles sustain themselves because people get something out of it. So victims get to subjugate responsibility, not take responsibility and throw their hands up. Persecutors, if someone's in that role, they're always pointing fingers, blaming other people, judging, criticizing. They don't have to look at themselves. They don't have to look at their responsibility. They're always putting other people down. And rescuers love that role because they also don't have to look at themselves and they get validation through that. So people stay in this cycle all the time, blaming other people, leaning into their rescuers, and nothing ever happens. It just continues. So the best way to notice that you're in that is to just look at where you are not taking personal responsibility for what you actually have.
Not taking personal responsibility.
And also searching for evidence that shows that you are not the victim and this isn't true. So searching outside of you for people who are actually experiencing the complete opposite because they've taken conscious control of it. So when we shift out of the drama cycle, we move into the growth cycle where the victim becomes a hero. And we do that by becoming self-empowered, taking 100% responsibility, getting help from an upskilling, like actually filling the gaps. I don't know how to do this. And that's my responsibility.
So taking fucking ownership.
Yeah.
Finding people who can help you.
Yeah.
And then when they give you something, do it.
Yeah. So then the persecutor becomes the challenger. So the thing that you're blaming actually becomes the way that you learn how to become better and adapt and upskill and pivot. And the rescuer becomes the guide or the coach. So instead of going to someone to validate you, you go to someone to give you feedback or ask you the right questions to help you grow. And that's how you shift from victim to hero.
So that's the shift from victim to hero.
And the victim always focuses on why, whereas the hero focuses on what now.
Really?
Yeah. So victims are always obsessed with why.
Victors and the heroes don't have an absence of problems.
No.
They just reframe it. As opposed to why me?
Yeah.
It's what do I need to do now?
Yeah. They see it as a challenge. They go, okay, this is it. What am I going to do about it?
So you've mentioned tools along the way, right? What are the tools or what are the things that, if there was an imaginary kind of kit bag of things that successful business owners,
Yep.
right, but they might not have started as successful, but the people that are going to stack the odds in their favour more to become successful, whatever that is for them, what's in the toolkit?
I think self-awareness, or just being able to hear your inner dialogue and separate and disassociate from your thoughts as being true.
Hang on, that's big. So self-awareness and being able to disassociate with your thoughts.
Yeah. So that means being able to hear the story you're telling yourself. So this is one of the best things that you can ever say. When you're stuck or you come to a friction point, ask yourself, what's the story I'm telling myself about this? Because when you frame it as a story, you're actually saying it's not true. It's a story. It's a narrative. It's not fact. So you go, what are the facts and what's the story? So my gym's not growing. The story I'm telling myself about it is because of the weather, or it's winter. You know what I mean? So that's a story because people are growing in winter.
Because people are growing.
So it's about understanding the friction point or the blockage. And then I like to do this thing, and I like to make some things that are hard or difficult humorous or just gamified. I look at the story because the story is a belief. And I say, like, if I'm going to take this fucking story to court and find so much evidence to poke holes in this, what would I do if I was going to take this story down and get like $1 million out of it? And I would
full bad bitch ass.
Yeah, that's it. And I just look for as many points of evidence to completely demolish that story, because beliefs are formed when we have a thought, and then we find evidence to support that thought over and over, and then we're like, okay, we have a belief now because I've seen all this evidence. So you have to start creating counter evidence that weakens that belief and weakens that story. Therefore, it's no longer true. You can actually choose to adapt to a different truth. So that's a simple tool, is just like completely taking your shitty beliefs to court.
I love that.
And then a big one is, and I'm a massive believer in this, is models of excellence and environment. So we always calibrate to our environment, and if you're not successful, I guarantee you're in a room of people who are unsuccessful too. And it's a victim rescuer,
That is
validating.
And it's just a bit, fuck, you guys are all doing this to each other.
Yeah, because environment is like your biggest potential and your biggest limit. When you're in an environment, in order to survive, you have to adapt to the values of that environment. So if that environment values struggle, it values like having no money or whatever it is, then you will adapt to that. And if you want to thrive in that environment, you have to adopt those values so you actually become it.
Yeah.
Whereas if you put yourself in rooms with people who have a completely different level or on the level that you want to be, you will unconsciously start to absorb them.
Man.
Yeah.
I pay squillions of dollars to be in rooms with people who are way ahead of me.
Yeah.
And honestly, to tell me I'm not good enough yet.
Yeah.
And I'm fucking, thank you.
And yeah, exactly. And I think you really need to, if you're going to be a successful business owner or successful in any area of life, you have to get the fuck over yourself and your ego and admit that you don't know everything, and admit that you probably need help, and admit that you could be further along, and put yourself in a room with people who are where you want to be, and you will just unconsciously start to soak up their energy, their values, like
take a deep breath, suck it up, and let's fucking go.
Yeah. So if you're out there struggling doing it by yourself, that's on you. Do you know what I think is really big?
Yeah.
And it's a bit of a topic du jour at the moment, but I don't think people in this space are really utilizing it enough. Nervous system work.
Nervous system work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Simple tools, because remember, the state that you're in, your body's in, really impacts outcome. So I'll give you an example. You know how people have a real aversion to sales and sales calls and everything like that. And if you some people do. Well, it's a big blockage for a lot of people, or even just anything that they don't like doing will put them in a certain nervous system state. So the state that you're in when you're doing something really impacts the result. So if you can change your state and shift into like empowered states or like pretty regulated, grounded states, then the things that you find the hard to do actually seem a bit more pleasant. So that would be just things like noticing when you've got tension, noticing when you're breathing shallow, noticing if you're just feeling a bit stiff or angry or something triggers you, and actually doing something in your body.
Oh, the shake.
Shaking is a massive one. Yeah.
Shaking.
Yeah, shaking, breath work, go for walks in the sun. Do you know what my favourite one is?
Yeah.
So frustration is a big one.
You push against the wall.
Push against the wall, yeah. Have you seen me do that?
So what happened last night at the restaurant? No.
Just in the bathroom. Yeah, ejecting unresourceful energy out of your body helps ground you, and then you're more focused. You're more on.
Is that why kids have tantrums? Or is it something to do with
Totally.
that? Yeah,
like if you just let a kid cry out, they empty out, and then they feel good. It's self-regulating. And so if you have some tools and practices to consistently be keeping yourself in a really good state on a nervous system level, then you're going to be more productive, you're going to feel more grounded, more clear, more creative. But it's when you are in sympathetic nervous system state, everything shuts down. So your vision...
Is that when you're panicking and stuff like that?
not necessarily, it doesn't even sometimes feel like that. It can be like low level stress. If you're panicking, if you're stressed, if you don't like doing something, if something just triggers that state, your actual vision narrows.
Okay.
And when your vision narrows, you can't think expansively or creatively, and you're focused, you're in a very contracted survival mindset, which means that you're going to take the safest option and you're going to act on fear, as opposed to when your nervous system's regulated, you act from an empowered place and you can see things clearly.
I love that.
So learning how to move energy through your body, release stress out of your physical body, and yes, training works, but there's some specific tools that you can use as well.
So we often talk about this equation of performance, because even though we've been talking a lot about people that are getting stuck here, high performers became high performers because they worked through this. It wasn't someone just decided, I'm going to take the high performance path this morning. They worked through this, and on the other side, they became the hero, okay? So if we often talk about performance equals potential minus interference, I'm going to mention a line here that you say a lot, and I want you to explain it to the audience. Who do you need to be to get what you want to get? Explain what that means.
Yeah, so this comes back to the be, do, have model. And this is the ultimate model of fast transformation. So there's those 3 archetypes. Do you want me to go into this?
I can hit it.
Yeah. So we've got the
Hit
victim.
it hard.
The victim. So the victim says, I have to have all these things outside of me, as in, I don't have it and I can't do it. Yeah. Something else needs to come in and save me. I need to have something I don't yet have. Then I can do all this stuff, and then I'll be this person who's successful and has all these things. So they do everything and have, do, be. And because they're always waiting around for other things externally to change, they're never empowered, and therefore nothing ever happens. They never become. Then there's the worker, and they do things in the order of do, have, be. So the more I do, then the more I'll have, and then I'm going to be this person. But there's always more to do, and there's always more to have, and then the being never comes. So they're addicted to the hustle, and they're almost defined by the doing and the grind, and that's what they think the answer out is, doing more. Whereas the winners do it in the be, do, have. They start to embody the characteristics, the mindset, the decision-making processes of the person who's already at that level, and then it feels quite natural for them to do things that person would do, and therefore they have the result very quickly. And the being component is an embodiment thing, so it's quite energetic. It's based on values, it's based on like daily habits, thought processes, how you make decisions. And when you start to embody that person who already has everything you want, the having just takes care of itself. And it's just like the fast track method. And so the way to start tuning into that frequency of that person is an expander, model of excellence. Get close to somebody who is there. And that's why spaces, masterminds, academies, coaching circles of people who are successful in what you're not yet successful in, that's huge in helping you learn how to embody, because we have these things called mirror neurons. Part of our mind starts to pick up on nonverbal cues, on energy, on all these kind of characteristics of a being component when we're around people that we admire. And then before we start to learn and adapt those characteristics. So having models of excellence or expanders, people who have what you want, who you can learn from or be around or just soak up the way that they do things, the way that they think, and you can see how they operate, your unconscious mind's going to start to take that on too. And you start to mirror and model. Yeah.
Fucking hell. So be, do, have.
They do have.
Listeners, that was a nugget and a half. So I want you guys to all lean into just rewind that part and just catch yourself, maybe just identify with which part are you in right now. And which part would you prefer to be in, and then understand where the shift needs to be in terms of yourself and how you kind of operate through good days and the bad days. It's fascinating to me how 3 people hit the same speed hump. One will turn that into a bad life. One will talk about it for 3 fucking weeks about that speed hump, and the other one didn't even notice it. Ash, this has been amazing.
Delivered.
Fuck, I reckon we could keep going.
I could talk about this stuff all
Can we
day.
do a part 2?
Yeah, for sure.
great.
Sure.
So to wrap this thing up, just look down the barrel of fucking camera 2 here. What is your plea to someone about what they should do instead if they're thinking that they just can't do this? They can't have a successful business. They can't have a successful studio. They're fucking struggling. They've tried everything. Well, you meet them all at the start, okay? Those people, what do you say to them down camera 2? What do you say to them that makes them kind of fire up and then believe in themselves again?
The difference between that mindset and somebody who is successful is a simple reprogramming of a belief. You learnt that where you are right now, you've learnt how to be that way and think that way. And if you can learn something, you can unlearn it and relearn something else. And it's as simple as that. The brain is fucking amazing. Neuroplasticity is a thing. So every characteristic that you don't necessarily like about yourself, you probably learnt, which means that you can unlearn and relearn something else. So everything is changeable, but you have to just want it enough and find the right help and admit that you don't have all the resources to be able to do it. So, yeah.
Wow. Okay. Last question. I ask everyone this, right?
Okay.
What question do you wish I'd asked you, and how would you have answered it?
Okay. The question is what I really wish that I could say directly to people that come to me, and I can see that they're stuck, but I'm probably not allowed to because I probably wouldn't have a job anymore. If you're not willing to challenge your own self on your shitty beliefs, don't even bother. Go get a full-time job. Go get a salary. Don't be in business. If you're not willing to do the actual inner work to work on yourself and you're going to be responsible for a team and a community, don't do it. It makes it much harder to succeed when you're standing in your own way all the time, but it's also going to impact a whole bunch of other people who are relying on you.
I often wonder if someone's asking for help, right, more than once, maybe more than twice, and they're getting the advice and they're getting the instructions and they're not doing it, that they don't want fucking help anymore. They just want attention. Ash, so good to have you here, mate, on these little fluffies.
I know.
These little fluffies.
Quite settled in here now.
I feel like I'm in a spaceship.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being part of this.
Thank you for
so much
having
gets
me.
you on here.
Yeah.
And I know that all the members in the Geronimo Academy absolutely love you and know that you're in their corner. And know that you're 30% bad bitch. And I honestly think that that's what they need. They don't need someone to just talk about their fucking chakras and it's like a bit of pull up your pants and get the fucking thing done. And that's why I value you so much as part of our little crew here, dude. So thank you. Now, listeners, if you fucking got some nuggets from this, rewind, do it all again, take notes, and actually put it into action. With that, owners, everyone listening to this, share this with a friend. Bye.